Hello friends, teachers. Today we're looking at Moroni 7, 1 through 19, a pretty practical lesson with some gifts for students. As we talk about the light of Christ, there's a lot of things that are challenging and complex as we try to figure out what's right and wrong and which direction to go in life. And we have help. So this lesson is designed to help students rely on Jesus Christ to judge between good and evil. We'll look at some famous verses that really can bless our students. I think it's going to be a great journey. I usually try skimming through the lesson to see how it's organized, to see what principles, what ideas kind of rise to the surface. It saves me time to get a big picture view. As I was doing that, I noticed a lot of pairs of great questions, just questions I thought, that's a good question, that is too. And thought that a lot of these could be organized in a pair setting with students as partners so that each of them had an assigned question. And so I'll share some ideas as we go along with the idea of pairs or partner work. But I do love how it starts out with an image. Images work really well. And so I put this on a PowerPoint that I'll share with you in the description below, of just having students look at this and say, hey, maybe you've seen these before, but you've got two squares here. Let's vote on which one's lighter or darker. Now, some students might think they're the same, but I'm guessing there will be some students that say, no, that one on top is definitely lighter. But get students involved, maybe have people raise their hand, explain why, but get people talking and having fun. Invite somebody to come up closer to the screen to look at it. They can X out part of the picture, whatever they want to do. But then I loved, while we're going to invite them to search, I like this idea. Instead of telling them the comparison, invite them to go to Isaiah 5:20 and see if they can compare what is taught there about the last days with the illusion. So I might start the pair activity right here and say, from the get-go, students, we're going to work in pairs. Now, a note about that. You as a teacher will know which pairs are most likely to work together. If there's two that are super buddy-buddy and they're just going to kind of talk about whatever, don't put them together. It could be an older and a younger, or a boy and a girl, but you decide, you kind of rearrange the classroom and say, we're going to have you work with somebody new and learn from each other. So let's have you two go together. You're a pair, you're a pair, you're a pair. Then I might show this screen. So before giving any assignments in the pair, say, we want you each, one of you is going to be blue, one's going to be green today. So quickly decide who's green and who's blue, and then you just simply say, blues, raise your hand, and you just make sure every partnership has a blue raising their hand. Anytime you get students to move their hand or raise your hand, they're participating, they're awake, they're alert, their ears are paying attention. So do the same thing. Greens, raise your hand. Great. Now, let's go to the next one. So if you're blues, you're going to read out loud to your neighbor Isaiah 5:20. And then both of you are going to talk about this. How can the illusion of the squares that we just looked at compare to Isaiah's prophecy in verse 20? So both of you turn there, and blues, you're going to read and then discuss. Let's take 60 seconds to do that. So you're giving assignments, and that's one of the nice things about working in pairs is you're given assignments. They have something to do. They're kind of accountable to somebody, and so they're more likely to be engaged. They may not have super productive, deep conversations as a pair, but you kind of warm them up, so you can now say, let's hear for some blues. Let's hear for some greens, and keep having them raise your hand. Greens, raise your hand. All right, good. Sally, did you guys come up with anybody? Let's have the blues raise your hand. Okay, Billy, did you guys come up with anything? Pairs invites us to be able to talk with students and get people working because we saw them working. So we think they might more likely have some ideas. So ideally, they had some good experiences and they saw that, yeah, it's tough. It's easy to call good evil and evil good and put darkness for light, light for darkness. That's just a good start to the lesson. I really like that. So we're going to think deeper about this. And so I like both of these questions. So again, and you can change colors at any time you want. If you want to switch it up and say, okay, let's decide colors again, green and blue. And you could be the same or you could switch. But each of you has a really great question. And so we're going to have you to think about answers to this and share this with each other. And so we're going back here, and I just put these on a PowerPoint. Here's the questions. Blue, your question is one way you've seen people in our day call evil good, good evil. Green, you've got that. And so have them take some time as partners. Again, this is just warming them up. They may not get very far, but that's where you have an opportunity because they're talking, they're awake, they're using their voices. Then as a class, you can have a discussion and say, okay, Blues, raise your hand. What do you think, Steve? What about you, Mary? And Greens, I love this question here. What makes it difficult for someone to see truth easily or clearly? Because this is establishing why we want and we're desperate for the light of Christ. And so I think we should slow down on this question, make sure that we spend some time trying to really figure out why it's so challenging. And then we could keep reminding God is going to give us gifts. We're excited about what we're going to see in Moroni because we're going to have help with this. Later on in the curriculum, I saw another pair of great questions right below. How do you determine if something right or wrong? How confident are you that you can recognize good from evil? Why? And this one said maybe you'd silently ponder answers to this, but you could do it in a pair. Tell them you don't need to share anything that's too personal. But, or you could say, we're going to have you write in your journal. So green, you're going to write your answer in your journal to this. Blues, you're going to write your answer in your journal to this. But we're just trying to get a little bit deeper about how good we are, how we've done in the past, if this is easy, if this is challenging. All right. So going back to the lesson manual, we're going to maybe have them think of examples of situation where it's challenging to know, like with music, is it good or evil? How can you tell? How do you decide? We're just really making this practical, and I like this. And so we're now going to look in the scriptures, and these are some powerful verses, and we're going to really want to find and mark things here. We can still do our pair activity with this. We've got some verses, and we want our students to be finding answers to this. So they are reading, they are marking, and that's another thing about a pair. If they've got assignments, and so you say you've got something to do, and you're accountable to your other color of neighbor. And so I've got a slide here for that too, where we're just going to go down and we're going to say, maybe in this one, because there's more verses, we're going to have you read those together out loud. And so they could take turns. So green and blue, you're going to read this, or one of you can. You decide together. But green, you're in charge of marking and finding how we can tell if something's good. And blue, you're in charge of how we can tell if something is evil. And we're going to ask what does the Savior, what the Savior does to help us to be able to know good from evil. So again, the advantage here is we're going to have every student looking for something, every student reading. This is a more active type of way to approach gospel learning. And again, after they're done with their partner work, you then as the teacher can say, what did you find? Is there a verse that really had the answer to green and blue? What verse is that? Let's mark that. And then we're going to highlight the principle. And we've got the bolded principle here. Based on what you found in these verses, how would you summarize this principle? Something to the effect of all things which are of God invite us to do good, believe in Jesus Christ, and love and serve God. And the opposite is true as well. And so we can then maybe, let's write that in our journal, or let's put that on the board. Let's highlight that principle. But the first half of this lesson has been interactive. We've had every student reading, every student talking, every student speaking, every student raising their hand. They're more likely to be engaged throughout the lesson if we start the lesson with them doing things. There's great things beyond that, but I'll pause there for now. Thanks for all that you do. You're wonderful.